Hey sweeties, in today's video we are making a couple of delicious and nutritious recipes with one of my favorite ingredients of all time, mushrooms. Specifically oyster mushrooms. We're actually using two different types. I've got these gray oyster mushrooms here as well as these king oyster mushrooms. They kind of look alike. They don't totally taste alike, their texture is pretty different, and they can be used in completely different ways, but they're both nutritious, they're both super delicious, and they're quite meaty as well. We're gonna be making some mushroom carnitas with the king oyster mushrooms, and we're gonna be making some barbecue oyster mushroom sliders with these bad boys. So let's get started. You're gonna love these recipes. To clean the oyster mushrooms, do not run them under water. Instead, use a damp paper towel to wipe off any dirt. When you bring your oyster mushrooms home, keep them stored in the refrigerator in a brown paper bag. This will help them last even longer. Don't throw away that tough bottom of the stem. Instead, save those to make mushroom broth, which is very nutritious and very delicious. You can sip it like a vegan bone broth, or you can use it anywhere else you might use vegetable or mushroom broth. Oyster mushrooms contain powerful antioxidants. They also contain a type of fiber called beta-glucans, which has been shown to be beneficial to immune health. Beta-glucans have also been shown to improve heart health and support healthy blood sugar levels. Oyster mushrooms contain a good amount of protein, but not nearly as much as more traditional plant-based sources like beans, lentils, and soy products. Oyster mushrooms, as well as other mushrooms, have also been shown to improve brain health. I bought these beautiful oyster mushrooms at my local international grocery store, but I also recommend shopping for them at your local Asian grocery store if you have one. We're going to get started with these succulent mushroom carnitas tacos. Tender and meaty, you have never had mushrooms like this. The first step is to shred king oyster mushrooms with a fork. Shredded king oyster mushrooms, also known as trumpet mushrooms, make the best vegan replacement for pulled chicken or pork. To create this recipe, I researched authentic pork carnitas recipes, and I'm using the same ingredients except for the pork. Saute an onion, garlic, and jalapeno pepper until soft. Then add the shredded mushrooms. To season, add a tablespoon of dried oregano, 2 teaspoons of cumin, soy sauce, salt and pepper, 1/4 cup of fresh orange juice, and 2 tablespoons of lime juice. Give it a stir and let those mushrooms cook for about half an hour. You can also do this in the Instant Pot, by the way. The instructions for that are on my blog. Recipe linked in the description box, of course. And listen to this. Once those mushrooms are tender and juicy, transfer them to a baking sheet and broil for 15 minutes. The broiler will make them meatier, caramelize them a tad, and crisp up the edges. You won't believe the taste and texture of these mushrooms. I like my carnitas served in tacos, so fill your corn tortillas with the mushrooms and top with your favorite fixings: red cabbage, avocado, and lime juice. They're also delicious with pickled onions and slices of jalapeno pepper. I love the meaty texture of these succulent mushrooms, as well as the notes of the citrus and earthiness from the oregano. Delicious, I give it 10 out of 10. It's hard to compete with those mushroom carnitas, but let me also introduce you to these equally amazing Chipotle barbecue oyster mushroom sliders. Friends, we are making our own barbecue sauce for these babies, and it's gonna be delicious. It's easier than you thought to make your own barbecue sauce. Of course, you could also use store-bought for this recipe, but I think homemade is extra tasty and satisfying. Saute onions and garlic, and once they're soft, add Dijon mustard, vegan Worcestershire sauce, adobo sauce from a can of Chipotle peppers, ketchup, tomato paste, liquid smoke, soy sauce, molasses, and apple cider vinegar. Give it a stir and let that simmer with the lid on for about 20 minutes on low heat while you cook the mushrooms. Oyster mushrooms require very little preparation, which I love. Avoid running them under water to clean. A damp paper towel should do. Slice the tough parts off the bottom of the mushrooms. The shrooms will reduce in size as they cook, so there's no need to chop them much. Add the mushrooms to a hot, greased skillet. Sprinkle on a little salt and then place another heavy pot directly on top of the mushrooms, like literally touching the mushroom. This pressing will draw out the liquid from the shrooms and concentrate their meaty texture. Cook covered on medium heat for about 7 minutes and then flip the mushrooms before continuing to cook them for about 5 to 10 minutes more or until they're tender, meaty, and browned. Back to the barbecue sauce. Transfer it to a tall jar and use an immersion blender to blend smooth. You could use a food processor or blender if that's what you have. Just let it cool a bit first and be careful not to burn yourself. Pour the barbecue sauce onto the mushrooms and stir to coat them. Cook them uncovered for 5 minutes longer. You've got to try this recipe. These mushrooms are insanely delicious. You know you've got to toast your buns, but before you do, give them a little coating of oil and top with minced cilantro or parsley and sesame seeds. So pretty. Load up the sliders with a spread of vegan mayo and Chipotle barbecue mushrooms, and then top them with some homemade red cabbage slaw for a welcome cool crunch. If I had a restaurant, both of these mushroom recipes would definitely be on that menu. Which are you trying first? Both of these recipes, plus so many more of my incredible vegan mushroom recipes, are linked in the description box down below. I'll see y'all next week here on Sweet Potato Soul. Bye!